Guten Tag, welcome. I am your host, Dr. Maxwell von Gunke, and today we will be exploring space with the children's book on exploring space. Through the miracle of Technicolor, parts of the show will be brought to you in brilliant colors instead of this classic black and white. We will see you after the show, and welcome. Exploring Space, a Little Golden Book. Exploring Space, a true story about the rockets of today and a glimpse of the rockets that are to come, by Rose Weiler. Pictures by Tibor Krugeli. Cover by George Solanewicz. Rockets away. Only rockets can fly in space. We now have big, powerful rockets that can go there. But they fly without riders, for they are not safe. Scientists use them for tests. This big rocket is almost ready for a test flight. All it needs is fuel. Zoom, boom, zoom. The rocket's fuel explodes. Flames leap from its tail. The roaring rocket shoots high into the sky. In 2 minutes, it shoots up 50 miles. Its radio signals, beep, 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 bop. A ground crew listens for the signals. They tell about the air high in the sky, and they tell how high the rocket flies. Click, click. The rocket's camera snaps pictures of the Earth below. Now the rocket is up 100 miles. It is far, far above the clouds. Up there the air is very, very thin, and the sky is black, even in the daytime. Up higher, there is no air, just black space. The rocket cannot go that high. It starts falling. The camera comes down by parachute. It drifts through the air and lands safely. But the rocket has no parachute. It plunges into the sea. Gravity pulls the camera and rocket down. Gravity is a force inside the Earth. It works all the time, pulling down on everything and everybody. That's why no one falls off the big round Earth. Gravity makes you feel heavy. If the Earth had no gravity, you would have no weight. No one would have weight. Everyone would fly into space. Because of gravity, going down is easy, but going up is hard. Jump up and you push against gravity. The harder you push, the higher you jump. Throw a ball into the air and you work against gravity. The harder you throw, the higher the ball goes. A rocket too works against gravity. A big engine pushes it up into the sky. The harder the engine pushes, the higher the rocket flies. The engine burns a lot of fuel, and it burns it fast. The rocket reaches a speed of thousands of miles an hour. Then the engine stops and it coasts. On and on it goes. If the rocket reaches space, it keeps on coasting. Why? Because space is almost empty. It cannot stop a rocket. A rocket, or anything else, stops only when something makes it stop. How will it feel to ride in a speedy rocket? If animals could talk, they could tell us, for mice and monkeys, dogs and cats have flown in rockets. The animals ride in the rocket's nose. A camera takes their pictures during the flight. While coasting, the animals cannot feel the pull of gravity. They have no weight. None at all. They float around like balloons. A parachute brings the rocket's nose down to Earth. Then the animals are rescued. As far as scientists can tell, they like the ride. To get people into space, scientists think we will need huge rockets made in several parts or stages. We already have 3-stage rockets that are as tall buildings. This one, called Vanguard, lifts a little moon into the sky. Bang! Vanguard blasts off. The Stage 1 engine shoots the rocket up. High in the sky, Stage 1 breaks away. The Stage 2 engine blasts off, pushing the rocket higher and higher. Then Stage 2 breaks away. Stage 3 fires. Up in space, the little moon pops out. Stage 3 lags behind, goes around the Earth a few times, then falls. But the moon keeps on going. A radio inside the little moon sends out signals telling what space is like. Gravity pulls on the little moon, but the moon works against this pull as it speeds ahead. Instead of falling into the Earth, it falls around the Earth. Around and around it goes, and it will keep on moving this way for many years. One of the first moons to go up had a dog inside. The dog's name was Laika. She lived in the sky for nearly a week, going around and around the Earth. Now that we know an animal can live in space, we are quite sure a man can live there too. But no man has tried to go into space because there is still no way to get back to the Earth safely. While some scientists are trying to find out how to land rockets safely, others are learning what kinds of spacesuits travelers will need. They pump air out of a room so it is like space. Men who are inside wear spacesuits to test them. The men breathe through a hose connected to an oxygen tank. How will the suits work in space? A man who wore one flew in a big balloon to the edge of space. He stayed there overnight. When he landed the next day, he said the suit was fine. Next, a man may test a spacesuit in a 3-stage rocket. Perhaps he will pilot stage 3 after it breaks away and speeds into space. He will go too fast to feel the pull of gravity. His body will lose all its weight. He will float around the cabin if he isn't strapped in place. Will the first space traveler like the ride? When he lands, what will he tell us? Other men will follow the first space traveler into space. They will test bigger and bigger rockets. And so scientists will learn how to build great big rocket ships. These ships will fly around the world in an hour. In time, scientists will know how to build rocket ships that can carry people to the moon. After the moon, what next? Perhaps people will visit other worlds in the sky. Perhaps, when you are grown up, rockets will be as common as airplanes are now. Then you and all your friends will be space travelers. Rockets away. The Little Golden Books are prepared under the supervision of Mary Reed, Ph.D., formerly of Teachers College, Columbia University. Copyright 1958 by Simon & Schuster Incorporated and Artists and Writers Press Incorporated. All rights reserved through the world. Designed and produced by the Sandpiper Press and Artists and Writers Press Incorporated. Printed in the USA by Western Printing and Lithographing Company. Published by Simon & Schuster Incorporated. Rockefeller Center, New York 20, New York. Published simultaneously in Canada by the Muson Book Company Limited, Toronto. Well, I certainly hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you next time.
Television can be such a thrill. Sitting home in your chair, watch the boys over there, charging across your TV screen, spinning blown to smithereens. Watch World War III on pay TV. If you want to keep the kids at home, they'll be glued to their sets, watching rockets and jets, blowing up schools and factories, putting an end to the birds and bees. It's worth every penny to tune in and see who wins the Emmy at the ruins of the Academy. Watch World War III on pay TV before your television melts away. Think of the close-ups on the screen.
What a face you know.
Isn't this better than Bishop Sheen?
Better than the Late Late Show? Watching the boys from your hometown,
Fighting whoever they are.
Watching the cities falling down.
it's greater than Jack Parr. They're out setting up the cameras now. Though they don't know just where, still they've got to prepare. Murrow's there to do his part, waiting for the war to start. See the hydrogen bomb explode. As those mushrooms appear, you'll be sipping your beer. Zooming in with a zoom our lens, watching while the whole world ends. It's worth
Rockets, zigoom. Tonight on the Late Show, Max's Models Theater presents King Kong Escapes, but Godzilla doesn't. What kind of madness of man has created cages that could hold the great kaiju beasts? How is it that King Kong, with his large ape's brain, manages to find a way to escape where Godzilla remains trapped? Will Kong help his fellow kaiju escape the wrath of the standard issue Mad Doctor? Or will Kong leave Godzilla behind to its fate while Kong does whatever Kong does? Watch as they release the Armada, the insanity of modern weapons sent against the simple-minded kaiju. Tonight on the Late Show, King Kong escapes, but Godzilla doesn't. Guten Tag, welcome. I am your host, Dr. Maxwell von Gunke, and today we will be exploring space with the children's book on exploring space. Through the miracle of Technicolor, parts of the show will be brought to you in brilliant colors instead of this classic black and white. We will see you after the show, and welcome. Exploring Space, a Little Golden Book. Exploring Space, a true story about the rockets of today and a glimpse of the rockets that are to come, by Rose Weiler. Pictures by Tibor Krugeli. Cover by George Solinewicz. Rockets away. Only rockets can fly in space. We now have big, powerful rockets that can go there. But they fly without riders, for they are not safe. Scientists use them for tests. This big rocket is almost ready for a test flight. All it needs is fuel. Zoom, boom, zoom. The rocket's fuel explodes. Flames leap from its tail. The roaring rocket shoots high into the sky. In 2 minutes, it shoots up 50 miles. Its radio signals beep, 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 bop. A ground crew listens for the signals. They tell about the air high in the sky, and they tell how high the rocket flies. Click, click. The rocket's camera snaps pictures of the earth below. Now the rocket is up 100 miles. It is far, far above the clouds. Up there the air is very, very thin, and the sky is black, even in the daytime. Up higher, there is no air, just black space. The rocket cannot go that high. It starts falling. The camera comes down by parachute. It drifts through the air and lands safely. But the rocket has no parachute. It plunges into the sea. Gravity pulls the camera and rocket down. Gravity is a force inside the Earth. It works all the time. All right, we are live. And hello, Blue Troopers. Max and Max's Models here. I got Steve and Ken on the line. Guys, want to give a quick sound count?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ken?
Hey, it's me, Ken. 673524722221.
BR549. Okay. If you guys can hear us, just give us a quick 5x5 or 4x4 or whatever, and we'll be on our way. First off, that intro, that was actually a bunch of folks when I mentioned I had gotten this book, which I have right here over my shoulder, Exploring Space. They said, oh, you've got to do it. So I read the whole book, which of course is a kid's book, and scanned all the images. And I made just a regular video of just reading the book from start to finish with all the pictures associated with it. And I was like, I'm sorry, this has got to be, I've got to do something to have some fun with this. It'll put everyone to sleep. So that's why I made the little, gag reel there at the beginning. And that was a lot of fun. But don't worry.
2x8. Yeah, wow.
Okay.
Multiplication and stuff.
It's the new math.
No problem with that.
People talk about new math, and I'm like, this is not math. This has letters. A, B equals C, D under R root. These are not numbers. This is not math. This is...
It's funny. This is fifth by fifth.
But I look at calculus and I go, this is not math. This is witchcraft, and witchcraft is illegal, at least in Massachusetts. So, anyway. So, guys, welcome aboard. I spent all day making my intro video, so I didn't have any time to do anything important, like, put stuff together for the show.
And that is new?
I don't know what I enjoy. I think I spend more time making videos than making models, but the thing is, now that we have, video that's instantaneous, I don't have to wait for stuff to dry, because, you start working on the models, you got 4 or 5 projects laid out, you do 3 or 4 things, you work about an hour, you turn around, and if I touch anything, I'll ruin it, so I go and start making videos about it. Hey Ken, other Ken Ash. One of the things we were going to talk about tonight is this car. This is the new Revell Aston Martin, which apparently is not available in the U.S. yet. And Steve, you're the one. I didn't get a chance to watch the video or do any screen grabs. Plus, I just got burned for using somebody's stuff without the permission, so I'm kind of getting a little leery on that. We'll be talking about that. There might be a few little changes in the channel in the near future, because I came that close to getting a strike, but luckily the guy didn't. He just like, look, if you just credit it or take it down. I already made the video, so it was easier to take it down and redo it. That's the video I put up yesterday. Anyway, and I don't mean to be stealing people. Well, I guess I do mean to be stealing people's stuff and borrowing it. Since I don't monetize a channel, I've always gotten away with it, but it is their intellectual property. And, I didn't even know who had done it. I found it on Wiki. I thought it was like free source, but it wasn't. So I got to be more careful about that, because Even a channel like this, I think it's 3 strikes and you're out. I'm sorry, sailed off on a tangent like I never do. Steve, you want to talk about this car?
Well, Revell Germany announced in, I believe it was February at Nuremberg, that they were coming out with a series of James Bond kits. And of course, the showcase of the grouping is the DB5, and it's an all-new mold.
Okay.
The thing that makes it sort of different is it's a snap kit, which I was a little surprised. It's a fairly expensive kit. I mean, if you go on the websites, it's $60-$70 plus shipping. I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be plans for Revell US to bring it to America. Hopefully, it'll be at a better price.
What's it running now? You said.
Excuse me.
How much is it running now?
It's $60 to $70 plus shipping.
Jeez, Jiminy, for a car.
Wow, you guys want that kit bad.
Yeah, not only that. Have you noticed?
That's a lot of money.
Even I noticed what you were talking about earlier. Do we notice something that's not there?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I said I noticed something you talked about earlier. It does not have. There's a major component that it does not include.
Yes, it does not have an engine. Although it does have the engine compartment, and the hood doesn't open. So, at some point, I would assume they're planning on issuing a standard DB5 kit with an engine. I would just think.
And an opening hood.
And an opening hood. Also, you can make this kit either as a standard DB5, which I don't know why anyone would buy it to do that, or as the car from the movie with the gadgets.
Uh-huh.
And some of the gadgets are not accurate. The big one that shouts out is when you watch the video, you'll see, is that they have the tire shredders not only on the rear, but on the front wheels, which the car did not have that.
Yeah, I'm blowing the picture up so they can see that because it is visible in the photo that it's got 4 tire shredders. And while you're on that subject, Steve, just real quick, why don't you tell them about the trickery that the stuntmen did, the cameramen did in the movie?
Well, it's impossible to have something like a tire shredder come out from the axle and still have the car operate with an operating axle. So what was done was there was a wheel and a tire. It was placed on rollers. There was a background that was put of the car, and they ran the rollers. It moved, made the wheel spin, and they pushed the tire shredder out from the back. And anytime you ever saw the shredders on the car was usually standing still because they just placed them in the wheel cap.
It was just a bolt-on.
Yeah, it actually just fit in the hole, and that was it. You know.
Well, I could say the same thing about the machine gun sticking out. I mean, I've seen a lot of movies where they'll put a machine gun on a car or an airplane. I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's where the landing gear goes, or that's where the engine is. You know, it's like you can't just stick one on the front, you know, like that. Machine guns are big and have receivers and need ammo trays. And
yes, sir, Jane. Yeah, there is engine bay detail. I alluded to that before. And there is the radar, which is, it's out of where the speaker is supposed to be on the radio in the console. But there's no grill that covers it. And no, Jack, there is no pull-out drawer below the driver's seat with weapons in it.
Which one was it? Airfix or Revell or Monogram had the one with the actual working ejector seat?
Airfix had the one with the working ejector seat, which you can pick up on eBay anywhere from $150 to $200. But that kit, everything worked.
Let me ask you a question, Steve, because I know you're a big DB5 guy, so you're actually the perfect person to ask. Now, I like cars, don't get me wrong, and I think the DB5 is a beautiful car. But what is it about this car that makes it let's face it, it's probably second only to the Batmobile for being iconic. Is it because of James Bond, or is there something about the DB5 in particular, or both?
Well, when this car came out, the DB5, they were transitioning from the DB4 to the DB5, so the DB5 was brand new. But when you looked at the car, unlike the Batmobile, this car fit into the natural order of anywhere.
Yeah, it was real world. It wasn't fantasy.
It was a car, that you would see parked on the street. You could see driving on the road, unlike the Batmobile.
Right.
Unless you lived in Gotham City. But, not only did it just look like the everyday driving car, but all the gadgets were hidden and worked. So it was like the wow factor was huge. Mm-hmm. And, it's become iconic. I mean, it's been used in many of the, in many of the Bond movies. I think it's been in about 6 or 8 Bond movies.
And
Now, did they use the same car or a different car?
Oh, God, no. I bet they use a dozen cars a movie.
Yep, they have different ones.
And,
yes, Bart, you are correct. The Aurora kit also did have an ejection seat that worked. It was called the Super Spy Car because they didn't want to pay a license.
You mean like the Piranha that I just built? Also the Super Spy Car.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you right now, James Bond's DB5, would beat the Piranha to pulp. It has stronger kung fu.
And like Sarah Jane points out, you can take the spinners off, and the number plates work. They spin around. I mean, and the bumper overriders will move in and out. Which is something that never really got shown in the movies. Mm-hmm. But the bumperettes can, come out and be used to push a car in front of you or protect you from the car running into you from behind you.
Well, this one does appear to have the ejector seat hatch.
Does it come with the? I'm sorry. Does it come with the GPS tracking system?
No. It has the little screen decal that goes, underneath the radio under the dash, but and it's actually the wrong color because it's blue instead of green.
Huh.
I mean, it's a nice mold. I mean, the kit it's very crisp, it's very sharp, it looks the part, but it's a lot of money for a snap kit.
Fun fact: Roger Moore was the only Bond not to drive an Aston Martin, but he did in Cannonball Run. I remember seeing that, and I remember the character's name, Seymour. You remember Cannonball Run? Roger Moore, who clearly was very self-aware and willing to do self-parody. Plays this rich kid who, with a James Bond fantasy, makes himself up to look like Bond and drives the car. And at first I saw the movie, I was like, I don't get this character, doesn't make any sense. I was like, oh, I get it. He's living a childhood fantasy, But I thought that was the only time he drove the DB5. I remember he drove the Flotus, as I call it, the submarine Lotus. Yep. And,
and he drove the other Lotus, the one that blew up.
Yeah.
And then he had a replacement one after that one blew up.
I remember when the helicopter's coming after him, he's underwater and he fires the rocket. Yep. I'm thinking, yes, because Q figured out that, yes, you might need an anti-aircraft rocket in case you're submerged. I mean, who thinks of this stuff? It's like, yeah, okay, sure, that's standard British issue. Have you guys
have one of those?
If you guys have ever watched the TV series Deep Space Nine, their Dr. Bashir had a spy fantasy. He's always in the holodeck playing a James Bond-esque character. And the character Garrick, the Cardassian, had been a spy for the Obsidian Order. And what I found, one of the funniest lines in the history of that show was when Garrick is invited into Bashir's holodeck program, and he sees how living like James Bond, and in a high level apartment with all the fancy stuff and an assistant and everything, and fancy clothes and weapons and martinis. And he goes, I have learned something, Doctor. He goes, what's that? I worked for the wrong intelligence service.
I never saw that. That's
Oh,
funny.
that's I forget the name of it. So like something like Bashir, Julian Bashir, or something like that. And it basically the holodeck goes live, and all the safeties are off, and they're stuck in there, having to live out a James Bond fantasy where they can actually get killed. So it was just a Star Trek crowd doing a filler episode, having some some fun with it. It's a good episode. Our Man Bashir, that's it. Our Man
holodeck
Bashir
episode when the safety used to go off.
Yeah. You'd think they'd fix that freaking holodeck yet. Our Man Bashir, that's the name of it. And all the characters, all the regular cast members, the holodeck, I think it's some kind of transporter accident. They're stuck in the transporter, and they have to like add extra power or capacity to it to hold their buffers. So they wind up using the holodeck because it's basically a transporter. And that's so all the bad guys and everything and all the characters are actually taking the identities. Like the chief bad guy is Cisco. He's like the head of Spectre, and Chief O'Brien's got the patch over one eye. He's the hired assassin, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, just thank God they did not make Chief O'Brien the love interest. But anyway.
That wouldn't fly.
But anyway, so they didn't do an external shot, so there was no Aston Martin in that episode. But that would have been cool to see Garrick and Bashir getting out of an Aston Martin. Well, Steve, you built quite a few Aston Martins, including the Eagle Moss. What would you say is your favorite Aston Martin kit?
The Airfix one.
Going back to the
With the
original
ejection
molding?
seat?
Yes, the Airfix one has all the gadgets. The ejection seat works.
Okay.
It's of all the kits, it's the most detailed one.
Okay.
I mean, even that one that you bought in piece,
The Eagle
subscription,
Moss.
even better than that one.
See, I don't count that as a kit.
Because that's more of an assembly.
It was more of an assembly. Well, you didn't paint it. You didn't, you did the wiring, but, it wasn't a kit. It was in the fact that you put it together, but it wasn't the same as a model.
Well, that brings up the issue about if you're not using glue and you're not using paint, and this kit, of course, is a snap tight. So there's some, it's still a kit, and I imagine you probably have to use a little glue on it because I've found most snap tights need a little help here and there. But
when they first came out with them in the 70s, we used to call them fall aparts. Because they didn't stay together.
Yeah, we noticed that.
Have you built
They
somebody?
still like that.
Lima Crazy is asking if you built the Aoshima DB5.
No, but I have it in the stash.
Okay. And yeah, that's like that car is like the P-51 Mustang of model cars. Everybody makes one. And I would say the Batmobile may be the only one that has, and maybe it may actually. You know what? I think more people probably make the DB5 than make the Batmobile. I could be wrong on that. Yeah, Terry Farrell. That's right. She was playing Dr. Honeybear. Man, that is a perfect James Bond name. Hello, good night. The one of the things that made Ian Fleming stuff work was the spot on names he gave everybody. But so the car, I don't know, $70 for a 124 scale snap tight that doesn't have an engine. I think they're going to have a little trouble pushing that.
Well, I want to see what it's going to, come to the United States and what Revell America will sell it for.
Yeah, maybe you'll get lucky. It'll make an Ollie's dump. And
I don't think so, because it's a new mold. They got to push a lot of them out to pay for that mold before they dump.
Never said Garfield has a 164 James Bond DB5 in gold plated. Believe it's a Corgi special edition. That's interesting. Well, of course, I'll bet you, and we're going to be talking about 3D printing here in a little while, and I'll bet you could probably get a file somewhere to 3D print that car. Although I don't think it'd be all that detailed.
There has to be one somewhere.
And just about everything else.
There is, like Garfield pointed out before, the Franklin Mint made a DB5 in 24 scale. and everything worked. It was pretty cool. And then they made a gold one, and that's where he's pointing out about the 1/64th one in gold plate.
Okay.
But yeah, the Franklin Mint one is pretty nice, and everything works. You know, it's very well detailed.
Well, most of the Franklin Mint stuff I've encountered in the past is very, very high quality. They had to sacrifice a little bit of finer detail to keep it robust enough that it wouldn't break, which I think is a fair trade-off because it spends 99% of the time on the shelf, but the 1% of the time somebody fondles it is when it gets broken. And the 3D printed one, depending on the medium you did it out of, though, would be the nice thing about that was is you could just crank out as many of them as you wanted to, and then you could, you know, have all the stuff showing, some of the stuff showing, none of the stuff showing, however you want to do it. But I got, what year was that? A 64?
Excuse me?
Was that a 64?
Yeah, the 64 DB5. Yeah.
How much? I'm sure they made a batch of them. How much is just a regular 64 DB4 in good condition worth today?
Well, the problem is they're worth a lot of money now because of all the interest that's focused every time they open up a movie about James Bond and they put the car in. They go for about $300,000.
Yeah, I wonder what the car cost new.
Excuse me?
I wonder what the car cost new.
Well, I think it cost about $20,000 when it was new.
That's still a lot. 64.
Yeah, well, it was, you know...
That was more than a Jaguar.
It was a car that the rich and famous drove.
I don't think I appreciated just how upscale the Aston Martin was. Because what was a Jag? It was like, what, $6,000 or something?
Yeah, Jag was like $5,500, $6,000, yeah.
Man, I thought it was 4 times as much.
I remember when my dad bought a car back about then. I remember the car was about $1 a pound.
Mm.
Well, that's how people in the Midwest used to buy them. By the pound.
My first recollection of car prices, and we're going back to the mid '60s, was an American sedan. I think selling for about $4,000. It seemed in my head, I seem to recall $4,000 what a car cost. And you would watch these commercials, and they would usually have like a baseball player or somebody, you know, doing their spokesperson, and a celebrity that didn't cost too much. And I remember one of them. He was a baseball player. I remember he was a black guy. He was a baseball player, and he was talking about, I'm so and so. Last year I only made, I don't know if he said $4,000 or $14,000, as a major league ball player. So obviously money matters to me. So that's why I bought it. It was one of the early, probably a Datsun. It was one of the early Japanese sports or compact cars, and I guess this would have been about '68. And I seem to remember him talking about. The car cost him $19.99. My memory's probably wrong, but
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Well,
Now,
I remember when the Mustang came out. The big thing was that they pushed in the commercial that the car was $23.68.
Yeah.
That was the price before. You could be higher if you loaded it up with options, but that's how the car, as it came, cost.
I should have called Mike and asked him how much he paid for his, because he got his in 1970, I think, and I think he bought it through AFES, but the military exchange. But it's funny because I seem to remember the first car I saw that cost more than $10,000. It was in the mid '70s. It was a big American gunboat that was with Friar Thomas Chevrolet, and I remember looking at the thing, and the cost of the car, I want to say, was like $12,000 or $17,000. It was. Or maybe it was $20,000. I forget. And this would have been about 74, 75. And I forget it was a Riviera or what it was. It was a gunboat. But I was like, my God, that's a lot of money. For a car, that's ridiculous. Of course, I can remember
it. My 79 Trans Am that I bought, it was, I guess it was about 4 or 5 months old when I got it. I paid $7,500 for it.
A new 1970 Superbird was $4,300 in 1970.
Yes, they were.
They couldn't give them away.
And they couldn't give them away.
I remember seeing one at a used car dealership. That thing sat there for my entire school year in the 5th grade, which would have been about 76 or 77. No, wait a minute. Let's see, 5, 11. That would have been 72. And it had $3,000 on the windshield. And it sat there for my whole school year.
I had a 79 Pontiac Grand Le Mans. And I put every option in it that you could get, and that car was $9,000.
Is there inflation in there anywhere?
Inflation's part of it. Don't forget, those cars didn't have a lot of stuff that modern cars do. They were much simpler machines and probably had a lower production cost. But and ironically, except for Johan, a lot of the cars, because they did the promos, a lot of companies didn't make a lot of the modern cars back then. They didn't think anybody was interested in their grandma's car. And 78 Camaro, 6,300. I went and looked at a brand new Berlinetta Camaro just before I got out of the Army, and I think that would have been 82. I think that was the first year with the new body style. And I forget what the price was, 16 grand, 20 grand, something like that. But I was like, man, that's a pretty car. If I'd had the money, I'd have bought it. So, shifting gears over to some other stuff here. I got the, in fact, you can see it right there. That is the Catapult Mr. Britton sent me. And it's already had one little mishap, operator headspace and timing, but let me... Okay, somebody's got something going on in the background that's making a lot of racket over the microphone. Okay. There's a repair I did on it today. Just close Ken. Okay, Ken, I'm going to have to mute you.
I'm working on it.
There's the repair I did today. This was fit the screen. Got everything back on it. The Catapult, that orange 3D printed part, had a it has an alignment notch, but it had the thing facing about 40 degrees off course. I don't know why. Completely different than every picture I found of it. And there's no real instructions with this, but I found some online photos that sort of show where everything goes. But this is basically one piece, but I had to take it off off the rotating turret. I had to get the gray part off the orange part. The only way to do that without breaking something was push from underneath, and the thing popped out like a cork out of a champagne bottle before I could grab it and hit the floor. So I was looking under furniture and everything. Turned out the piece was behind me, but I got it put back together. It's okay. And
that's the first place I look.
Yeah, but it's really, really, really cool. And I would have it here with the little Curtis SOC on it, but as I was manipulating it, I realized that SOC has 4 little framing members that hold the main pontoon on, and 2 of them were broken. So I got it over there with the glue hardening on it, so I don't dare touch it. But anyway, once this thing, I used epoxy on it. I used that thick, tacky epoxy on it, and being resin. But what I was going to talk about was the 3D printed parts, and this were what the orange part came in, and this snap, I had to snip this off. But I was thinking, I'm saving it because like this stuff is just too cool. There's got to be something with a diorama or something I can do with these things, and thus the little gag, movie I did on the intro here. But
what is that?
That is the 3D printed material that the thing came in, that these parts came in, and so I was like, it took me about 5 seconds to figure out what I wanted to do with it, and there was my little desktop diorama of King Kong escapes, but Godzilla doesn't. But I mean, literally, as soon as I saw that, I was like, I know exactly what I'm doing. You might be a model builder if you look at a piece of leftover material like this, and your mind goes straight to, cage, diorama, whatever, I'm gonna save these because I'm gonna do something with them. But it got me to thinking because that center post was the inside the two pieces. It came like this with the centerpiece inside. You have to snip the things off to get it out. But I was really impressed with how crisp everything was on the model. And once I've got that Seahawk that was sent with it that I can build, and I've got another float plane that someone sent me recently that I can. And what I'll probably do is use this thing to pose 1/72 scale aircraft. I was looking for something to pose on that, but I didn't have anything really handy except for the GB with my Kit Bash GB. And I was like, putting a GB on a Catapult launched cruiser, that may well be one of the worst ideas in aviation history. But it'd be cool to watch. But and I was just like, let your imagination run, baby. That's the Kit Bash GB with my Kit Bashed soft field landing gear, rough field landing gear. Retractable, of course. But anyway, so Ken, that got me to thinking about 3D printing. We've all asked the question: is 3D printing the future of model building? And I certainly know it's going to be a big part of model building, but I thought you might kind of bring a few folks, including myself, up to speed on what some of the different 3D, all 3D printers are not created equal.
Oh, far from it.
So I thought you might give us a
stuff
quick
you got there. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
Okay. The stuff you're holding up there probably came from a resin printer, which it's 3D, but there's a different kind of technology where they pour a bunch of liquid resin into this chamber, and then on the bottom they have a bunch of LEDs that emit LED ultraviolet light that hardens the resin, and then it pulls it up just a layer and allows the liquid resin to get back in there again, and then it shoots another ultraviolet at it, and it just keeps pulling it up, and a lot of the structure does have to be supported as it's printed, otherwise it just won't turn out right.
So that explains the bird cages around it.
Yes. I was just at my daughter's house in Atlanta not too long ago, and my son-in-law there has a really, really cool 3D printer. It's made by a company called Bamboo, and this printer is $2,000, and it is so cool. It does 4 different colors. It'll do up to 16 if you get enough rolls of material and the devices that go with it. It's very fast. It does its own bed leveling. It's got its own enclosure. It's like the printers I got make it look like toys compared to what this thing does. It's just amazing, and the resolution is really good. So printing technology has, for the hobbyists, us, has really come a long ways.
If they ever figure out how to do it out of styrene, something to use regular model airplane glue, that would certainly make it more popular, because I think you have to use CA glue on this stuff.
You can use CA or epoxy. Either one works.
Yeah.
It'd be too much heat for styrene.
Oh.
You need a lot of heat to get the styrene to flow.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What temperature do you need for styrene?
Oh, it's really high. I don't know the exact temperature, but it's very, very high.
More than 300 C?
Oh yeah.
Well, of course, that's because the
lot lower.
styrene is flowing as a liquid. You might be able to get the styrene to work out of a printer because it doesn't have to flow as a liquid. It goes on in little tiny dots.
Could be.
Could be, yeah. We'll see. Of course, I got so many other mediums out there. As you can tell, there are about, what's it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there are about 8 parts that come with it besides the 2 major components. I figured out where some of them go. A couple of the others, I'm still looking at pictures trying to figure out exactly what goes where. This did not come with instructions. I do know that the 2 pieces in the middle that are mirror images of each other, those are the snubbers that catch the thing at the end of the track. And of course, on the far right, you have the trolley. I just have to figure out where the other units go, but that shouldn't be too hard. This is a off of a cruiser, a pre-war cruiser. Some of the later catapults look a little bit different, but most of them have the same basic layout. So there's quite a few reference photos out there. But the 3D printing, because you don't have to keep inventory. You keep a bunch of stock medium, and you keep the information in the database, and when somebody orders one, you just print it for them. And Steve, can you imagine how profitable it would be for a styrene company if they knew exactly how many models they had to press and didn't have to make extras, just leave them on the shelf and wait till they buy them or sell them a year later?
Oh, it would be great. Well, in the beginning of 3D printing, and I mean, we're going back, 5-8 years ago, because that's really when it started to become more of a consumer type product. The pitch was that you were going to be able to take places like, let's say your dad had a hardware store.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd sell somebody a drill, and a part in the drill would break, and they bring it into the store and say, you have this part. And your father would probably say no, but you could contact the manufacturer and they'd send you the part. Well, if you had a 3D printer and you had the files that the company made available to you, you could print the part right there in the store.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the pitches that they used to try to get retail to get on board with 3D printing. I mean, it hasn't evolved to that yet, but that's one of the ideas they had, and that's actually a pretty good idea. Because you don't have to have an inventory of all these parts. You can make what you need when you need it.
That's actually what NASA was planning on doing for missions to Mars. Rather than spare parts for everything they're already made, they would just send them a printer and they can print the spare parts.
Yeah, that is the future of things. They just carry the blank medium. Somebody was talking here, and I saw Curious Droid's video on 3D printed rocket engines. For those who don't know, the engine bell on the Saturn V on the big F1 engine, it looks like a big solid cone, but it is not. It's made up of hand brazed tubes, and the rocket fuel is pushed down through these tubes that go down. Imagine if it's like a grass skirt, sort of like a Hawaiian grass skirt with all the fibers facing one direction hanging down. Well, imagine each one of those is a straw, and made out of an extremely high grade metal. I think it was Inconel. Anyway, and it would loop through at the bottom and come back up, then go into the combustion chamber. It did two things. It preheated the fuel, and it carried away a lot of the heat from the blast of the engine. Because otherwise it would have fried the inside of the engine bell. And it's a genius, but it was every single piece, thousands on each engine bell, were hand brazed into place. And they were only good for 70 seconds, and you threw the whole thing away. Well, one reason no one's made an engine as big as the F1 before was because of the immense difficulty, and sadly all the people who knew how to do it have passed or well into retirement. And it's a lot of lost skills that went into the Saturn V or the SR-71 for that matter, and some of the cars as well. And but 3D printing, since they've got the designs, they can print it from the ground up with the tubes and everything, and you don't have to braze them together. Just print it as one big solid part with all the holes and everything pre-drilled. So they said that making and yes, Elon is using 3D printed parts in some of the rocket engines and everything. The technology is it's becoming a game changer. It's becoming a disruptive technology, and which is great. All kinds of complex curves and everything.
You can even get carbon filament, so you can 3D print your own carbon. What's the rest of the term? Losing it.
Carbon fiber?
Carbon fiber. Yes, you can get your own.
So you
carbon
can basically
fiber filament,
3D
print
print
your
a
own
home built
carbon fiber
airplane.
parts.
Yeah, you can make airplane parts for your home built. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure 3D printing is going to be a big part of our lives in modeling. I don't think it's going to replace injection molded styrene as far as base kits go, because they're still, you can pop them out a lot faster and a lot cheaper.
Much faster.
And but then again, not having to make a mold, kind of a game changer there. And the nice thing
3D
is,
printers excel when you only need a few pieces of something.
well, they also excel that if you make it and you look at it and go, that ain't quite right, you just change the computer file and make another one.
Mm-hmm.
So, because
That'll change as they get faster, because they have gotten faster, and they'll continue to get faster.
yeah, I mean, let's face it, the Star Trek replicator is basically the future of the 3D printer in 100 years or 200 years, whatever. And what was that we were watching? I forget the name of it. It's about the guy who it's a mini series or a TV series on like Netflix. The guy dies and they put his consciousness in a computer and he goes to this computer simulated heaven, and but his girlfriend who's still alive, her niece or somebody bites into a chicken leg and hits a bone. She goes, "Ow, what's that?" And he goes, "That's called a bone." And the old man goes, "Yeah, not everyone can afford 3D printed food." And I'm like,
Hey,
it's out there.
I know-
I'm telling you,
I know.
it's out there at
I
some
know
point.
a woman who is one of the leading pioneers in printed 3D food.
There you go. And
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, it's all chemicals, and chemicals are all information. Apparently, if you break down anything to a certain point, you get past the molecular level, you get down into the quarks and stuff, it all becomes information. And which is kind of a scary thought, but then again, that was the whole idea behind the transporter in Star Trek. It's information, and that information is knowing where to put all those little atomic bits back together so you don't, come out with your head on backwards. They actually did a TV commercial, I think, in the 90s with William Shatner, where they have a transporter accident, and he's beaming up with a female crew member, and the heads are on the wrong bodies.
Oh, I don't remember seeing that one.
And the first thing he does is he's like, ooh, and she smacks him. And that was really good at poking fun. But I was like, yeah, that could, why not? One of the reasons this TV show, what is it, Dark Mirror, is so popular, and I've watched a bunch of episodes of it, and it's haunting because it's hauntingly foreseeable that the things in that show will happen someday. And I mean, I'm not a Luddite, but there's a point, and I realize some of it's my comfort factor just because of age and upbringing, but there's a point where I really kind of like, yeah, maybe we should put the stop on this, or at least slow things down. Probably one of their most impressive episodes, I think, was called The Wire. And it's where everybody has a little implant that records everything you see, but you can have like a little VCR controller. You can roll it back and live your memories over again. But one of the new crimes is yanking people's wire out and selling their memories on the dark web. And I'm like, God, they not only invented a new concept, they invented the likely crime that would follow it. Talk about stealing your information.
Like Twitter.
Yeah, except I don't think Twitter's mandatory. I'm sorry, now it's X. Black Mirror is great.
A lot of people refer to it as X, formerly Twitter.
X, formerly, the artist formerly known as Prince.
Yeah, same idea.
Yeah. Well, I can understand wanting to put his own brand on it. I think X is just a little bit on the spot for a brand, but okay, what the heck? It's his company, do what he wants with it. I mean, even guys like Gates and the late Hawking and Elon and the rest of them, a lot of them are saying that hey, maybe this AI thing We need to start seriously putting some brakes on this. But a lot of people feel that true AI is an independent thought. It's not going to happen because computers cannot create. They can absorb and they can blend and morph, but they just can't create an original thought from nothing. And
certainly not with the powers of computers that we have today.
Yeah, but who knows, 100 years. But like I say, they don't have to actually be able to think. They just have to be able to misconstrue instructions. You know, protect Earth.
Sure.
Humans cause damage. Destroy the humans to protect the Earth.
Remember Skynet.
That's the first place I go when people talk about this. Like, did you ever see Terminator? That's one of the reasons that I'm glad that no matter how sophisticated military hardware has gotten, it still requires a human to pull the trigger. Although I understand that's going away in some cases, and that is concerning. I didn't think much of the movie Stealth. Well, they made a couple of them by that name, but the one with the
airplane.
Well, they were both about an airplane, but one was an 80s movie about an F-117 with folding wings that could air launch out of the back of a cargo plane. And I was like, wait a minute, the Stealth is a bomber, and these guys are out there shooting at each other and shooting missiles. I'm like, yeah, that's a little Hollywood fantasy there. But the second Stealth movie, which came out, I don't know, 10 years ago, Jamie Foxx, that's what it's like. That one was the thing's actually thinking and you know, apparently gets hit by lightning or something and it just goes rogue. And I'm like, look, I realize it's just Hollywood being Hollywood, you know, cool special effects and everything. But, and it was a high dollar movie. It was very well done. Only Jessica Biel could make a flight suit look that good. But I was like, yeah.
The one problem with that kind of AI is the airplane runs out of fuel eventually.
No, they addressed that also. And
they did, but I can't see it being sustainable.
No. We only have so many floating fuel blivets in the sky.
What about, remember Colossus?
Oh yeah, with old Hans Gudegast. And he was he wound up being the victim of his own his heist. Yeah, and it was like the computers telling him what to eat, you know, and all that other stuff. And that is something we don't need. Well, even the movie War Games, you know, Womps. And
Wampler. Yeah, that was not real. Trust me.
That is not how computers work. But
it is definitely
Whopper. That was it, Whopper. Yeah, and anyway, these movies, I realize, are just Hollywood trying to entertain people. I don't take them too seriously. I get picky when they're doing something historical, like the Devastators with the 500-pound bombs on the wings in Midway and a torpedo. I'm like, oh my God, I just want to strangle somebody. But the you don't want a weapon system having autonomy. They're aids. As Spock once said, computers are great tools. I do not wish to work for one.
When did you say that?
In with the Ultimate Computer.
Right after he passed the Colonar.
He said that in the episode The Ultimate Computer with Dr. Daystrom and the M5 computer, and I love McCoy. He's smiling about Spock. Spock finally met the right computer. Yeah. But he makes the comment to the captain. The captain, computers make excellent tools. I do not wish to work for one or live under one. But
is that the one where the creator used his own engrams to create
that's it. Dr. Daystrom. That's it, of the Daystrom Institute. That actor, who I believe is actually Canadian, did a magnificent job of playing Daystrom, you know, when he's losing it. You are great, I am great. You know, like, that is one of the greatest. And like, I see he went to the Bill Shatner School of Overacting, but I love it. It's perfect. Your mighty starships crushed by the M5 computer. Yeah. And good God, Jim, he's losing on the edge of on the verge of an entire breakdown. Yeah. But I love when he tells him to disconnect it, and the ensign goes to disconnect it, and it seeks more power and fries the guy. You go, what? It was an accident. They needed more power. The ensign simply got in the way. How long before we all just get in the way? Yes. But that was a very prophetic episode, though, because it was essentially an AI, and it didn't take it long to go bad. Goes and blows up one ship for no reason, and he's like, this was a mistake. It went out of its way to destroy this ship. And look,
well, that's one of the things that Asimov saw when he created the three rules of robotics. He realized that this had to be controlled.
Yep. Cannot harm a human. Cannot allow a human to be harmed by act or omission. I forget the other one, but it's the Asimovs are a pretty good piece of circular logic to help protect us from our own inventions. For wearing a red T-shirt. Yeah, that's basically it. Wearing a red shirt. Yeah. Somebody did a body count on those things. The red shirts definitely bought it in the bigger numbers, but somebody. This was just on one of the YouTube videos. I forget which one, but they were showing a TikTok video of a girl in a red shirt, and something happened. I don't know if she fell off her bike or whatever. But the guy was just like, that's what you get for wearing a red shirt. I mean, he went right to the Star Trek comment, and this was in no way Star Trek related. She just happened to be wearing a red shirt when some misfortune befell her, and he's like that. And I'm like, you're making me superstitious here, I mean, I know the guys were phaser bait, but. I should have worn my phaser bait T-shirt now. Anyway, getting going, looping back to our models and movies and all this other stuff is that one of the things I have noticed in Hollywood, I'm happy to see it, is there's starting to be a return to tactile models, and model makers are starting to find work again. CG is great for a lot of stuff, but they're finding that sometimes just a physical model works better. So I'm glad to see there's a little of that coming back. I don't know how much in this new Godzilla movie was models and how much was CGI. The Japanese have really mastered CGI. But I've heard really good things about it. They did that premiere, and the thing's getting 9s and 8.9s and stuff, and apparently there's more to it than just a monster. It actually has a story, so good on them. What do you get?
Story, that's a story.
What?
The crowd says, we're all red shirts, just waiting for our time.
Yeah. Don't bury me in a red shirt. That's probably how I got here. There is something I was going to bring up, and I don't think I downloaded I've downloaded. Let me go run and get the image real quick. This was something I didn't know about, and this comes from our good friend Paul in New Zealand. This is a advertisement. This is from a slot car magazine. Now, I knew Monogram, and Revell and a lot of their stuff were using slot car. I didn't realize that Pyro and Palmer, that there were people who were converting their cars into slot cars. And my understanding, I've never actually built a Pyro or a Palmer model car, but I understand that they were not great, but the lack of detail in the hollow body did actually make for a place to put the electronics and everything, and they were cheap. What are we looking at here? $1. Oh, hold on, I'm going to switch glasses. You know what? Let's just blow this thing up here where I can read the prices. Okay, so a Monogram kit. Let's see. Oh, the models are only 98 cents. Well, oh, wait a minute. Okay, what is $10 now? This must be some kind of order form. Okay, year modern 98. They go up to $2.98 for the Duesenberg, $2.98 for the Mercedes. The Big T, the Big Drag, the Big Rod, $10.98. Wow, those must be huge. And
the crowd says Palmer and Pyro are possibly the two worst model kit makers.
That's what I've heard. Well, they were just plastic companies.
Here.
Huh?
No argument here.
But you look here, the Palmers are literally half as much. 50 cents, 98 cents. To Monogram's $1.49 and everything. So you get what you pay for. But I did not realize that making slot cars out of polymers and pyros was a thing, which I don't know why they wouldn't be. I just thought that was kind of cool. And let's see if I can get a date on this thing. No. I mean, the 3-in-1 customized car kits by Polymer Plastics, 98 cents, 128 scale. Who does 128 scale?
Nobody.
They're calling this in the monogram side, they're calling it 1/2 inch, but that's 124. If I'm not mistaken.
Kevin Smith says 1/8 scale.
You have to be careful because remember they're called 148 quarter scale, 124 half scale. So 1/8 scale would have been what, about almost HO?
No, 1/8. Eighth is big.
Well, it depends on if you're getting 1/8 inch or 1/8.
1/8 scale was the Jaguar and the Corvette, right? I'm not looking at your price list, but in monogram kits, yeah, they were huge kits.
Oh, okay. All right, then it was regular 1/8 scale. Okay. Man, that is a huge kit. Because this is saying, like the big rod, 1924, $10.98, and it says 1.5. So, I'm not sure what that is.
Bill Paul says, I'm currently working on a Mach 2 kit. Pyro looks pretty good in comparison.
Yeah, I built that little Ryan Vertijet for Mach 2. And God bless the guy, he just retired recently, I think, so there won't be any new ones. But God bless him. I mean, starting a model company and everything is no minor undertaking. But, yeah, I don't have a lot of good things to say. Except that they make a lot of interesting stuff. I've got that big, large-scale Mach 2 York 4-engine cargo plane that I'm going to get around to at some point. And I have one reason I haven't gotten around to some of the big models, I have no place to put them. And I've got models hanging up in the garage. Hey, Bill. I gotta switch glasses here to read some of the comments. Paul's saying something here. That is 1.5 inches to the foot, or 1/8. Okay, so that's 1/8 scale. That makes sense. All right, so why they're so expensive. Man, that is a big model car.
Yeah, try buying one on eBay.
Oh, I bet they're pricey.
They're real pricey. It was a good kit though.
Chuck's saying he's a one-man show, makes his own tools. We're talking about the gentleman running Mach 2, I think. Yeah, he's an impressive guy. But Palmer kits are listed as 1964.
He picks a lot of topics that most of the mainstream manufacturers don't do.
Well, that's one of the nice things about doing out of that weird resin plastic that he uses and cutting his own molds is that he can do what he wants. God bless him for it, though. I mean, I have a lot of respect for him in doing that. I may not think much of the models, but by God, you got to give the man props. That is a massive undertaking. Oh, you guys see the Godzilla lunchbox down there?
I have a question.
That thermos might end up going on the road with me because that's a real working thermos. And I was going to buy one of those travel cups, so I could drink my coffee in the car without spilling it. They're like $30. Now I got that one. So you have a question?
Yes, a few of the Blue Troopers have asked a comment. It seems like all of your activities, or a large percentage of them, are done in the house as opposed to the TARDIS.
That's I can see why you would think that. Let me explain. I actually was just thinking about that the other day, and that exact thing. Okay, right now I do some of my repair work in here when I have a model that breaks because usually the model's in the house, so I just bring it here to fix it. and I've been doing the World Cruisers over here in the house. I have 5 projects going on in the TARDIS right now. That's where I built Godzilla's Go-Karts, where I'm building the Arizona. That's where I'm building all the Vietnam stuff. That's where I've got the Captain Kirk figure. And they're all spread out. Each kind of have their own table, or at least they're supposed to. Of course, stuff gets moved around. But anyway, I have about 5 projects going on in the shed. And a lot of them are at those stages where there's really nothing to report on, like, doing a little metal work and take the occasional picture. But when I'm in the house, it's really convenient if I'm here just to, if something breaks, just to fix it right here. I usually have one model going on in here, no more. Since I have the Douglas World Cruisers being rigged a little piece at a time over here, I have learned my patience for rigging is starting to wane. So I just do a little bit at a time. They're kind of eating up the desk, with the exception of the Super Spy car. I did not intend to start that in here. I opened the box to go through the parts, and was just laying stuff out to look at it before I took it into the TARDIS. And I started gluing parts together because the first few parts went together so easy. And the next thing I know, I had everything spread out and started working on it. That was like an accident. That wasn't supposed to happen that way. The air conditioning and lighting are a little bit better in here, although it's adequate out there. But normally, if I'm going to build something in here, it's something that should be built quick, a day build or a 2-day build. And I've got most of the tables in the shed already occupied. Tomorrow, I'll probably be out in the TARDIS working. And, of course, I've got to do the Halloween, and still pictures are still coming in. The 31st, I'm going to put the video out on the 31st. So if I don't have pictures by the morning of the 31st, they'll probably just go into the viewers build. This will also be the last thing I put out for a while, because you guys know I got the training coming up. And I'll do something to let you guys know when we're going kind of, semi-dark. My training is supposed to be completed at the beginning of December. Then I got to go out and do OE, and then you got the holidays, so that'll be... That's why I'm pushing the Vietnam build back so far, that I got so many models to build.
When's the Mustang build?
That again may move, but let me open that back up and see. I got it right here. I also want to do the poker models.
Kevin Smith says outer space in the TARDIS already?
Vietnam movie scene 3 Mustang. Right now I have. Okay, that ain't happening. Good God, I gotta update these dates. Let's see. Uglier. That's the.
Bubba Head says, I totally get it, Max. I do the same thing in my bedroom. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to buy a new bed. It's currently got 2 builds on it, and I'm sleeping on the couch now more than I did when I was married.
That's good. Yeah, Jim's, when we visit Mike's friend Jim, he's got models everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere. So kind of the same thing. Okay, the Mustang build at the moment is a year from now, January 2024. That could change. I got the Ugly Aircraft, Halloween, and Ugly Auto build into this month. Because of the training, I pushed back the Vietnam build till January 30th. I should have all my training done and have my schedule somewhat established by then. Hollywood scene studio build in front behind the camera, April of 24. The 317 build, 3 of anything, July of 24. The Mustang build. Why do I have April, May? Well, that doesn't make any sense. If we're going to do that in July, we don't have to go back to January. So let's hold on. Let me take a quick peek here. As long as we're working on this, let's work out a schedule. 317 build to be July. So I only do about 90 days apart. So August, September. So October of 24 would be the Mustang build. So that's literally 1 year from now. Oh, there it is. I had November 24. Okay. So we'll make it due November, October. Let's just make that offhand. I'm just going to make it November 15th. Because everybody will have, Thanksgiving coming up. 2024. Korean War build. Let's move that up to and that's what I'm planning to build, that F-51D Mustang that was got really nice when it was given to me. Let's see. So November. So
Chuck wants to know about 3 of anything.
what do you want to know about it? What I called it the 3.
When it's going to be.
Okay, well, when it's going to be? That's July 30th of 2024. The idea behind that is I have 3 B-17s. Actually, I have more than that now, but they're really nice kits, and I figured it'd be a good time to build all 3 of them at one time. And I also have some of the captured B-17 Japanese decals that were sent to me, but I got a whole bunch of accessories for them. That'll be nice to do something different. And and one of them has got it's an early model, I think a C model or something with a straight tail. I'm looking forward to this. I don't know where I'm going to put them, but I'm going to. I am looking forward to doing. I'm looking forward to doing all of these. Let's see. Mustang will be November 15th of 2024. Korean War build February 25. February, March, April, May, June. Dream car will be June 2025. And then the Wild West build will be June, July, August. I'm probably going to build that other stagecoach. September. That'll be my birthday of 2025. And then we've got other possible group ideas. Another seaplane build, a box art build. If that's not quite right thing. We've got a bunch of ideas. Now these can be changed, because these are just gives us a goal. Save. Let me just highlight this and copy it so that when we're done with this, I can put it in the comments section. I got to remember to keep posting this thing. Oh boy! And
Wendell B-36 says I have 5 B-36s.
Well, you just need to make a squadron of them in formation. Find a big ceiling to hang them under in your house.
You think he likes that airplane?
Hey, it's a heck of an airplane. It is an impressive piece of aluminum. I've seen a couple of them, and I'm like, you stand there and go, man, they made this thing when cars had tail fins. How much aluminum is there in the world?
There's one at the Air and Space Museum in Dayton. It's enormous.
That's the Museum of the U.S. Air Force. Air and Space is in D.C.
Oh, that's what I meant to say.
And apparently they're very particular that you call it the Museum of the United States Air Force. It is not the Air Force Museum, which is what everybody calls it. Yeah, go figure. Picky, yeah. I'm looking at all the builds we've got going on. I'm thinking there's a whole bunch of stuff we haven't done. Well, some of it, we're pretty flexible here because the whole idea behind this is to have a good time. For example, let's just say for kicks and giggles that you wanted to build, an Aurora figure, right? Or an Atlantis repop of, King Kong. Well, if you put him in the jungle and you go, well, that's not a Vietnam build. But if you put a Huey in front of him, it is.
That's flexibility for you.
Huey.
It's kind of Kong Skull Island. Actually, now that I think about it, that would be kind of cool. You're more than welcome to mix genres and stuff, Now, the Mustang build can be a horse, a car, a plane, anything called Mustang. Or all 3, whatever you like. Because the whole idea is I want you to have fun doing this. I don't want it to feel like work. You do this for the kicks and giggles. And I'm happy to do these things. It is a lot of work, but like I say, I enjoy making the videos. So I know how fortunate I am. I get to fly for a living. I get to do this on my time off. I have a very understanding wife who fortunately has a similar hobby in her dolls. Sometimes she helps me with them because she does faces way better than I can. And I tell you what, if I ever make something that she helps me with and do put it on a table at a show or something, her name's going there beside mine. Once in a while I get to make a scratch build a Star Wars gun for her or something like that, or build an R2, whatever. I built the Lost in Space B9 robot to go with one of her dolls, the big one. and that big $50 Polar Lights thing, or Mobius, and good kit. We bought the upgraded one with the glass brain, and yeah, really, I wasn't going to go with a lighting kit. That was the only thing I'm going to light is a Glue Trooper sent me this Star Trek NX-01 Enterprise and the lighting kit. And I have the lighting kit in the box with it. I'm looking at it right now. I'd like to put that in the Galaxy Quest ship towards the front of the build schedule, my personal build schedule. But I keep saying that, and I've said that about so many models that are still waiting for some attention because only so many hours in a day. But as we all know, you got to kind of be in the mood. I think we all do our worst work if we just. That's one of the reasons these Douglases are taking so long to lace up, is because I don't want to just. I mean, like, I could just buckle down and do it in a day. I'm like, yeah, but then the quality is going to slide because you're going to get impatient, you're going to get mad. It's a hobby. Let's enjoy it. So, moving at my own pace, and they're not homework.
Garfield says something funny.
What's that?
He says, B-36, 2 burning, 2 turning, 2 smoking, 2 choking, and 2 unaccounted for.
And
and the crowd says, Museum of the United States Navy is the ocean bottom.
Actually, I've been to both the Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton a couple of times. I haven't been there in a long time. When I went the first time, I was a kid. This just came up today in a comment that I left to somebody. Moving to our next subject, I went to the mall yesterday. You guys, I no doubt saw the video. And in Tallahassee, in the late 70s, early to mid 80s, I don't know if it was Little Folks or which store it was they had there, but there was a hobby shop in the mall. And I asked you guys about that, and I got a lot of response. And apparently, New York, Ohio, a few other places, you guys, Michigan, and in Canada, you guys have talked about in the 70s or the 80s, there actually were hobby shops in malls. About 4 or 5 people said they remembered an actual real honest to God hobby shop in a mall. So I know it wasn't just us. And of course, I am sure that the current mall paradigm doesn't really work for a hobby shop. And as a couple of people pointed out, malls are kind of dying. Ours is doing okay, but the cross town, the Regency, is looking weak. These days, I imagine the prices at malls have fallen to the point that you probably could put a hobby shop in one if you wanted to, but most of them are in strip malls, just like the one here, Hurricane Hobbies. And we had a really good hobby shop, just not even hardly 5 miles from Hurricane Hobbies. It was in the back of, you had to know where it was at, but everyone who built knew. And it had a lot of floor space, and it was big, and they had a big parking lot out back nobody used, so they could have the RC car meets and everything. And one of the things the guy who ran that hobby shop told me was that if you're going to have a hobby shop, you need to have a parking lot or someplace where you can hold art radio control car meets, because that's a big thing. And Ian's trying to work that out where he's at. He's considering possibly, I don't want to give away any tactical or technical data, but I think he's considering, if the opportunity arises, relocating nearby to a place that would be big enough to do that. But unfortunately, I think the place he was looking at got snapped up by somebody. The problem is that hobby shops need space that they can't afford normally. A lot of the successful hobby shops, like in New York over there in Midtown, Red Caboose, you have to go to the hall, you have to go to the aisle sideways half the time because, everything's packed in so tight because he's so tight for space. But he's got great stock. He's got a constant flow of people coming in. That economy of keeping everything packed in so tight keeps him in business. And he doesn't waste anything. He's got stuff up all the walls, hanging from the ceilings, the works. And he packs that thing like a spacecraft. But
like that hobby shop in Anchorage we saw.
Yes, same thing. And again,
the guys that are still in business are the ones who bought the building.
I don't think the guy in the Red Caboose owns it, but I don't know.
No, I don't think he owns it, but he's got the basement.
Yeah.
So he's kind of safe. But like in the suburban areas, the guys who went out of business are the guys who didn't own the building because they couldn't afford to pay the rents.
Yeah, that's true. And all of them I can think of, except one, were in strip malls, and the one that wasn't was in sort of like a duplex. It was like two businesses in one building.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they owned it because he said because he said the lease is running out and they're not going to renew it because they're selling the property because the property got too expensive. That's what kills a lot of small airports. There isn't an airport. There's a small airport out there near a city of over 100,000 people that isn't worth more to a developer than it is as an airport. And I have personally seen airports that this happened to. Woodbine Airport in Virginia. Was it Woodbine? The one that was south of Alexandria? I think it was Woodbine or something like that. But anyway,
Woodbridge.
Woodbridge, that was it. I think Woodbine was a glider port. I towed gliders out up in Maryland. Yeah, Woodbridge. I remember going there, and I love the feel of the operation. Small town, but being in Northern Virginia, there was a lot of money there, so you had a lot of nice planes. It was a nice facility, but it wasn't too big. It was busy, but it wasn't too big. I was there. That's when I was getting on the police department. I was there when they said, yeah, that they sold the land for millions of dollars. Bye-bye. You know, and the restaurant I used to go to, which was near where I lived in Fairfax, it had the placemats that kind of had like the local history. And it talked about the Beacon Hill Airport. And I was like, I've never heard of the Beacon. It was in Beacon Hill. And I was like, I never heard of the Beacon Hill Airport. And the waitress was like, you're sitting on it. And I was like, huh? She goes, yeah, this used to be the Beacon Hill Airport. And I was like, this is all buildings and businesses. She goes, yeah, urban sprawl. And,
well, that's why drag strips are closing up.
Yeah.
Because the land's worth more to build houses or buildings on than it is to have drag races there.
Yeah. And I remember for a lot of our emergency driving training, we went to Old Dominion Speedway near Richmond. And they were even saying back then in the late 80s, early 90s, it was getting really hard to keep places like that open.
Yeah.
And the rental.
Now, Max, do you remember the White Flint Mall in D.C. in Rockville?
Oh, I remember Rockville. That's not where we lost Kevin, is it?
No, different mall.
Okay. No, we lost Kevin. No, I'm serious. We lost Kevin.
We found him again, though.
We didn't find him. Somebody else did.
Well, yeah, they returned him. They turned him into the lost and found, and we got him there.
Yeah. No kidding. No, seriously. We turned around. He just wasn't there. What was he? 8, 10 years old?
Yeah. So he tended to wander off a lot.
He's slippery little devil. And
The
first thing
Mall it was built back in the mid '70s, I think it was, and it was a 3-story mall. It was huge, and they just recently destroyed it, and now it's going to be condos.
Oh, that doesn't shock me.
You want the ultimate mall heartbreak story?
Sure, let's do it. As long as we're crushing our history.
Roosevelt Field Shopping Center in Long Island is on the site where Lindbergh took off to fly across the Atlantic. And there's barely a plaque in there to commemorate.
Yep. I actually read about that in a flying magazine, I think. They talked about how where Lindbergh took off, it's like a plaque in a business somewhere.
It used to be an open shopping center, and then they closed it in and made it a 3-level mall. Well, when it was an open shopping center, they had a plaque and a little thing out, and this is the spot where he took off. Once they closed in the mall, then it's a plaque on the wall under the elevator.
Jesus. Well, yeah, New York real estate.
Not even a mural, on the thing.
That's sad.
No.
And Trey's pointing out RC fields are meeting the same fate. That's true too. I lost my RC field in Orlando. That it wasn't a legitimate RC field. Where my sister-in-law's family was, there was these 2 gigantic open fields. I take my FMS 0 out there and fly it with Santiago, and I think we did it once or twice. And then I went back and I was like, man, this is great. Got these gargantuan open fields. Got a road right beside them to take off and land on. This is awesome. And then about a year later, they started putting warehouses up on it. It's like, well, that didn't last long. When we bought the place in Daytona, same thing. I got these 2 gargantuan fields. Now it's where the Tanger Mall is located. It's like, don't let me look at your property as an RC field, because it's going to wind up getting turned into a mall. But by the way, Steve, Trey's giving you some love on your car, your model build. By the way, Trey, side note, we don't evaluate the models. There's not like a first place or anything. But I have gotten a lot of comments on Trey's Suzuki, which was, I watched his build videos on a level of you guys got to watch them. The level of details is insane. On Steve's, what was that? What was that race car you made?
Matra.
Huh?
It's a Matra.
Matra. And a lot of people love the SR71, the Jerry's SR71 and X15 and Bell X1. Those are ones that actually got like emails or saw a lot in the comment section and stuff. But I even had some people ask who did them. Now, normally I don't identify who builds a model, partly because I can't keep it straight. By the way, I think I found a couple of pictures of some models that I overlooked. So if you didn't see your model in there, apologies. I got them going in the next one. I was like, I don't remember seeing that. My management skills.
I think I can take that monogram picture down so we can see your pretty face.
What's that? The what?
The picture of the monogram car and all the prices and stuff.
I did take it down.
I don't see that. I don't see that.
Ken, I think your screen's frozen.
Oh, maybe it did.
I took that down a long time ago. You might want to do a refresh there, buddy.
Sorry about. Oh, there we go. There. All right. Okay. Let's put the picture back up.
You want me to cover my face again? But the I am amazed at some of the work. And then I go to Modelpalooza or JaxCon. You look at them up close, and you don't even see any blemishes up close on some of them, and you're kind of like, holy cow. Now, I did buy some of that 2080 tape, and everyone who has used it, I've gotten a couple of comments from several people, and everyone who has used it has told me that it's worked very well. So I'm looking forward to using it. And I got that AK camo putty, which I've only used that for a couple of little things that were really minor. I'm looking forward to when I get the camouflage for the Vietnam builds, using that a lot. And there's a lot of cool toys that I've got that I haven't really used much lately. I just so many things. And to be honest with you, I'm spending a lot of my time, some of my time studying also. This morning I got up and studied BIOT for a couple hours, which is Basic International Operations Training. And most of the stuff I probably already know. When you're going to training, you really got to bone up on it. And so I've got 2 very intense weeks ahead of me as I transition from the right seat back to the left seat. And
do you think that guy who tried to turn the engines off on that Alaska flight who studied that?
The word that's come, and mind you, I get my stuff from the media like everybody else. The stuff we get from internal is pretty much the same information. But the story I got is that he'd been up for 48 hours. He had some pretty serious anxiety issues. He decided to take some mushrooms, like you do. And that's how that all happened. He's looking at 83 counts of attempted murder. I'm sure they'll please something out. Okay, Ken, are you strangling someone?
It's my grandson. He's being sick. Sorry, my wife came in and brought me a piece of pizza and left the door open.
Well, that's what you get for having offspring. But
Stuff happens.
Listen, you got to tell everybody that, look, we live in a world with surveillance and live streams and stuff everywhere. If you're gonna choke the kids, you got to go someplace quiet.
Get a basement, Ken.
Yeah. Oh God! Now I'm having images of Buffalo Bill.
That's right. Work for Buffalo Bill can work for you.
What was something you don't get the something you don't get the sign? I forget what it was, but I was like. And that's the guy who later played the police captain Stottlemyre on Monk. And I'm thinking, the actor's definitely got range, you know. But I was
Nathan
like,
says, give that child a model kit. Well,
Yeah.
I gave him we built a Lego shuttle earlier today.
there you
Is
go.
sitting in pieces in front of me right now.
You mean he watched and ate gum and watched TV? And I guess I did.
No, actually, he did put it together. I
Well,
give him
good
the
on him.
pieces, and he would put it together. He did a really good job on it, but unfortunately, it didn't survive a 6-year-old.
Yeah, you know, Ken, I don't think I'm going to criticize anyone for returning a snap-tight kit form after the trouble I had with that VW. So I'll just sit over here quietly and let someone else poke fun at him. My hypocrisy only goes so far.
Young kids should be carbon frozen until after puberty. There's some merit to that.
Well, just the AK masking putty. That's right. It's awesome. Leaves sharp panel lines. I'm looking forward to trying it. Apparently, I think I was talking to Trey about this. The thing is, if you want feathered edges, though, you got to leave a bit of a good, you know, peel it up just a little bit and be careful with the airbrush. One of the things about feathering edges, I've used Play-Doh and tape, you know, curved tape and a lot of other stuff, and you can get nice feathered edges. The problem is getting a consistent feathered edge. You know, you're like, oh, the feathering looks great in the last quarter inch where it gets sharp or it gets real fuzzy or whatever. And because like I say, I look at some of these models and I'm like, man, that's just fantastic. One thing though, I've quit worrying about on 1/72nd scale or smaller, I really don't worry much about a feathered edge because the scale of the model kind of would absorb it. If you can get the feathered edge, but it's probably going to be off scale because, you know, on a small model like that. I actually saw one guy that has these beautiful RAF bombers. And he does a lot of the larger bombers in 1/72nd scale. He only uses a paintbrush. And I was like, they look great. Well, you look at it and you realize they weren't feathering the edges in the RAF as a matter of camouflage technique. They were doing it because they were using a spray gun. And they would just go over it and just make the edge. And they weren't, I mean, I guess the feathering may have helped a little bit. But sometimes they wound up with surprisingly sharp edges. And it's like because the airplane's so big and the paint gun was so small that putting a paintbrushed edge, a sharp edge on it, didn't detract from it at all. Can't say how accurate it was, but the models looked great in the end. That's what matters. If you freeze them, they'll never reach puberty. That's true. I was thinking the same thing. If you carbonite freeze them, I don't think they're going to keep growing.
Well, yeah, we're not going to do that.
It was an Airbus 321 CEO. Yeah, we've got 321s with the classic engines and with the Neo engines both. Be honest, I kind of like the classic engines better. I know the Neos burn less fuel, but got the dual cooling and the elongated warm-up times and everything. And some people say they don't do that great up in the thin air. But anyway, you know, I just fly what they park in front of me. Oh, I got to fly one of our old ones recently. And that was a blast from the past. You know, I love old airplanes, but that doesn't mean I want to work in one every day. But you don't appreciate the toys till you fly an airplane that doesn't have them. Let's see here. Micro weld from the 70s would make kits go to kit. Yeah. Sometimes glue gets old, bonds give way. You know, not every glue welds the model. Check your angle when you make that pass with a feathered edge. Change the angle, you get a shadowed. Yep, exactly. I've had that very thing happen, a double shadow edge. I'm like, dadgummit. And then you make it worse when you go back and try to fix it. And that's when things really go south. And
it's always best just to leave your mistakes alone.
Max question, I had, if that pilot would have successfully been able to extinguish the engines, could they? Yes, they absolutely could be restarted. In fact, if you just, the relight procedure on a bus, if you have a surge or a flame out, the relight procedure is off on with the master, and that starts the sequence back. So if he had been able to do it, you know, they probably would have just elbowed him to get him off the controls and off back on, and they'd light back up. if you lost power, somehow got both of them off and lost the generators, the ram air turbine would deploy, so you'd have electric power with a reduced load. You might have to dive the thing, get it heading downhill to get them to start, but they will restart, absolutely. And in fact, they'll try to restart on their own.
Take that answer and send it to JetBlue School, Orlando, Florida.
We don't. Why would I send it to JetBlue? Why would I send it to? I have no affiliation with JetBlue. Remember what we don't talk about.
Sorry.
I had no idea what the man on the other end of the phone is talking about.
Sorry. My
Somebody
bad.
said something about Spirit earlier. Was he a Spirit pilot?
No, he was.
Alaska.
He was an Alaska pilot.
Oh, Alaska. Oh, Alaska pilot.
And,
Oh.
and he
Yes,
was. I think he was on a.
that place tends
But what
to
wasn't he
drive
on?
me crazy
Was he?
too, also.
Was he on a Horizon flight?
I thought he was on an Alaska flight.
Well, he might have been a Horizon pilot that was on an Alaska flight.
Yeah.
I know it was offline, but Horizon is the co-chair partner with Alaska, so that may have been, I don't know. Anyway, la 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 la. No, obviously I cannot, since I am not an official representative of my employer, I cannot officially, tell you where I do or do not get my money from, or whose planes I fly. Although I think just about everybody figured it out a long time ago, but I can neither confirm nor deny.
Nathan Boss says, "I know nothing."
I think he was only on mushrooms. I think he'd taken some kind of anti-anxiety. ERJ 190 from Horizon, I believe, yeah, which is the airplane I flew before this. And yeah, you could restart. The 190. Every airliner you can. And ironically, here's the funny thing: in the E190, turning the engine off in flight doesn't turn the engines off.
What does it do?
Nothing.
Makes noise.
Yeah, the switch is inert in flight for not that reason, but the E190 has a pair of start switches. If you reach up and turn one of them off in flight, and the thrust levers are where they're supposed to be, the engine won't turn off. On the E190, to get the engine to turn off, the thrust lever has to be in the idle position. So that means you got to kick off the auto throttles, pull that engine all the way back to idle, okay? And you have a procedure you go to shut down the engine. But just reaching up, turning the switch off won't do a thing. And other than
Sounds
get
like a safety feature.
yeah, it's a safety feature. Other than to get the cockpit crew, to take the crash axe to you. It was E175, so they could have restarted according to Blanco. Oh yeah, absolutely. But if he just reached up and turned the knobs off, the engine just keep going. And of course, at that point, this is when the crew freaks out and chokes you, but starts beating you with fire extinguishers and crash axes. But no, the engines keep going. And in fact, there have been times when pilots have pulled up to the gate, shut the engines down, or tried to, and the engines were still going just because the thrust lever was about a quarter out of detent. Just about a quarter inch out of detent. He pulled them back, but apparently bumped one of them with his wrist or his watch or something, and it moved forward about a quarter inch. So he shut the engine. Now on the ground, the switches work if the thrust levers are in idle. And he turned them off, and he's getting ready to get off the plane. I go, "You gonna shut that engine down?" He's like, "Holy crap!" And the engine's not. He's like, "Oh," he puts it back in start or in run, pulls the thing back to idle, turns up, and she shuts down. So yeah, they have their safeties, all kinds of safeties in there to prevent an accidental shutdown. And but that's an E190 thing. And yeah, I think he was an Alaska pilot on a Horizon E190. I think that's right. I forget. But what you giggling at?
Mike asks, "What's the procedure for a gremlin on the wing?"
Yeah, that's when you get, well, you go into an inverted negative G and see if you can sling him off with a hard roll. If that doesn't happen, then you look in the back and find someone that looks like William Shatner or John Lithgow.
And ask them what they see.
For those who don't know, a a jump seating pilot who was trying to get home, was off from another carrier, but was authorized to ride the jump seat. We do it all the time. He tried to shut down the engines in flight. He went bonkers. He was hallucinating. And apparently, my understanding is, last thing I heard, they were claiming he'd been up for 48 hours without sleep and was taking mushrooms for anxiety. So there are so many things not right with this situation. And when I first got in this business, you could jump seat if you were any Part 121 or Scheduled 135 airline pilot. Although when I came in, the Scheduled 135 thing had just gone away. That was a little commuters, and but Part 121 is what covers scheduled airlines. And if you were a on the books active duty or active pilot at any airline, any 121 airline, you had your little ID badge for the airline, and you could go up to the gate. Hi, I'm John. I'm Max Conkey with Mesa Airlines. I'm a Beach 1900 first officer, which is the bottom of the bottom, the entry level position. Could I jump seat on you? I remember the first time I did it was a Delta 737, and they just looked at your badge. You showed them your pilot's license. They had a little form you scratched out. You took it to the captain. You showed him your license, your medical, and your badge. And a lot of them were looking for an Alpha pin. And you say, hey, Skipper, Maximum Beach 1900 FO up in Presque Isle, Maine. I'd like to catch a ride with you if I could. And they had a seat, sure. And if they didn't, they let you ride in the cockpit in the jump seat. We still do. And I could not believe how easy it was. That's why when you see the movie Catch Me If You Can, it would have been Abagnale was able to do that. It was really easy. He made a fake ID badge, which back then they were just laminated cards. And I'm sure plenty of people who'd been in the airline industry scam free rides. But like you said in the movie Airport about Helen Hayes, character getting on the plane back, when there was no security. He goes, oh, come on, she stole a ride, not an airplane. And I knew the first time I did this, and I asked the captain, I said, listen, I'm brand new to the airline industry. I've been flying at Mesa 2 months. You mind if I ride up the cockpit? I just want to see what you guys do. And he was like, you want to give up a first class seat to ride the jump seat? Go ahead. And that's how he knew I really was a new guy. And that was the only time I ever passed up a free first class seat. And anyway, I got off the airplane in Tampa, and I think I got on it in Pittsburgh or I think it was Pittsburgh or Boston. What the heck ever. But I was like, that was way too easy. And I thought to myself back in 1997, or this is early 98, I was like, someday some idiot is going to do something stupid and ruin it for all of us. I did not forecast 9/11, but that changed everything. And all of a sudden, jump seating became a much more involved process. You had to be cast, which you still do. Crew access security system, something like that. They've got the same photo that's on our ID. Now all the IDs have chip readers in them and everything, and it's way more sophisticated than it used to be. And unfortunately now you can't use, for a while you could still go up to the gate and show them your stuff and they could scan it. Now you got to have your passport, and you got to do it online before you even go. Because in the old days, you'd go up, can I get a jump seat? Oh, I'm sorry, it's taken. You just go over, can I get a jump seat? And you could go on plane to plane until you found one that was open. Now you can't do that anymore. You have to log in a ticket. I mean, it's still a free ride if the jump seat's available, but it's a royal pain compared to the way it used to be. And it's just tragic that it's gotten that way. And but that's the industry.
So is that one guy that screws it up for everybody?
Well, in case of 9/11, it was more than one guy. But yeah, but I'm afraid, my concern is, look, I got 2.5 years of this left, 2 3/4. Good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. And I won't even be around for some of the big happenings that are going on at my own company, because nothing happens that fast in the airline industry. It'll take a few years for these things to happen. So we're in the new terminal, which is cool, but so I got to see that. But I'm like, the bright line's running, and So if I want to go see Ken, I can walk right out of our terminal building, get right on the Bright Line, and head on down to Miami or West Palm or Fort Lauderdale. But that's really nice, but I'm not going to be doing it that long. And so these things don't bother me. The kids coming up now, it's just like we've talked about on this channel before, when we all reminisce about the 70s, 80s, riding around the back of pickup trucks, meeting our friends at the mall. Back when if you wanted to meet someone, you actually had to physically go somewhere. All these things, kids today, I really think we grew up in the best time. And I think they're losing out on a lot of free ranging that we used to have, and this business is no different. So,
I read an article today on the internet that had me hysterical.
Okay.
And it was about how there is now a list being circulated on the internet of 20 places that women don't want to be taken on their first date.
This could be interesting.
And they're all restaurants. And it starts with the number one is Cheesecake Factory. Number two is Olive Garden, Applebee's, Red Lobster.
What? They don't want to go to Red Lobster?
What?
They don't want to go to Red Lobster?
That some guy picks her up for the first date, and they drive to dinner, they pull up in front of the Cheesecake Factory, and she says to him, "I'm not getting out of the car." And he goes, "What do you mean?" She goes, "I deserve better than the Cheesecake Factory."
Okay, look, I'm not really going to argue with her on that one. That place, except for their low-carb cheesecake, they ain't exactly top shelf.
Well, see, so then he gets back in the car and goes, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "You should treasure me. You should be blah, 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 blah." I'm like, okay. So he drove her back home, and he said, "Get out. We're done." I would have left her at the Cheesecake Factory.
He was being nice.
But the thing...
Hooters it is, then.
But in the article, they had comments, and people were saying, what happened when you would take someone for a Coke? For an ice cream?
Yeah. Down to the Dairy... I mean, down to the Dairy Queen, man. I'd still go to the Dairy Queen. Okay. Couple of comments real quick.
A 5-star Michelin restaurant for the first date?
Clown Museum. Real quick, I want to address something.
Where did you take Monica on your first date?
Well, we started to go to I think it was Smoky Bones or something like that. But the place was packed and noisy, so we wound up going to a fusion Latin restaurant in the Florida Mall. And Monica being a great cook, and everything. What? Anyway,
What do you say, Steve?
Monica's a great cook, so and she's Latin, so she was not terribly impressed with the food. Fortunately, she was terribly impressed with me, and that's really what mattered. But
where did you take her, Ken?
My wife on our first date?
Yes.
Actually, our first 2 dates, we went roller skating.
Why not? Okay, real quick, I'm going to address a couple of things right here. First off, yes, jet exhaust can knock you on your butt. Second off, they're talking about the incident at the FedEx when that guy attacked the crew. There's something important to know about that guy. FedEx had just absorbed another carrier. I think it was Flying Tigers. That guy came over from the previous carrier, which was a little bit more of a low-rent operation. And they had not. That's before, I think, the Pilot Records Act, and he was not doing well. And Ken, you still there?
Yeah, I'm just kind of miffed that you decided to change subjects right
No. We're gonna. Well, I can tell you're mad because the phone lit up with your picture all of a sudden. I thought you hung up on me. No, it's just before I forgot. What I want to point out real quick was because of that and some other stuff. We have the Pilot's Record Information Act. Airlines get your whole training record now from your whole history of flying now. But Steve, you still here? Steve? Everybody's cutting out. Okay, merge.
I'm
with
still
Ken.
here.
Hold on. Hang on. We're having phone problem. Merge.
Oh,
Okay, got you
got
back.
dropped.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it happens. Okay. So, real quick. The guy who did that had come over from the carrier they'd merged with. He'd gotten in trouble at FedEx. They went because they did go through his background, which I think his current employer had not. And they found a whole bunch of red flags, including, I think he claimed he was a naval aviator, and he wasn't. He might have been a backseater or something, or not a naval aviator. But, I mean, they found some BS in his background. He was being taken to Memphis, I think, for termination. So, of course, I'd have been suspicious when he got on the plane with a friggin' spear gun, but anyway. And, yeah, and it was a tragedy. One of the guys permanently grounded. I mean, it was, you should see that cockpit. It looked like something out of a Freddy Krueger movie. That was a really bad deal. He's still down at the bottom of a Supermax, which is where he'll be till he stops breathing, and rightfully so. He wanted to crash it. He wanted to do a pre-9/11 9/11. He wanted to crash it into the Sork building. Anyway, so Ken, you went roller skating.
Yes, we went roller skating.
How
twice.
old were you?
What's that?
How old were you?
Oh, how old? Because you got faint, real.
Sorry, how old were you?
I was. I was 19.
Yeah.
I was 19.
Okay, well that would be a typical 19-year-old's date back in, what was it, 1934, 35?
74.
Oh.
Ken, did you wear a helmet when you went skating?
No, but he has to wear one now.
Oh, that explains a lot. Okay.
Well, I did fall down frequently, and on the second date, I fell down like 3 times in the same hip, and after the third time, I got up real slow, and the guard / referee or whatever you want to call him, he came over and he said, "Come here, we're going to take a look at you." So he takes me back into their medical room, and my date / future wife was there with me, and he starts looking at my very bruised hip. And he starts poking us. Does that hurt?
Did he make you
No.
take your
He pokes
pants
something.
down?
He goes, "That hurt?" And no. And he pokes something down, and I scream. And he says, "That hurt?" And I said, "No."
Did the bad security guard make you pull your breeches down? Did he touch you in the wrong place?
Pedophile. He just wanted to touch you.
Yeah, I'm wondering here.
No, I think he was concerned that I really, really hurt something.
Listen, I used to fall down all the time skating also.
My wife, she hung around.
Ken, I used to fall down all the time skating also, but I was properly insulated for it. Not to mention, as big as I am, when I went down, I usually took 2 or 3 innocent people with me.
Yeah, I had a few people jump over me.
Yeah, I had a couple didn't clear me. Yeah, I took that toe stop right in the kidney, but by God, he went down in his face.
Hey, he's in the way. We'll just jump over him.
And in case you guys are wondering if we ever do get to make our sitcom model citizens, this is exactly the kind of crap it's going to be about.
And let's see, we got an anniversary coming up here in a couple weeks. So I think it's 48 years.
Wow. 48 years. Manson got out before you did.
Yeah, but he went out the same way. He did it through death.
Let's not compare that. That wouldn't be a good idea.
What is that joke about? What's that old country song about? She said, I said I do, and the preacher gave me life.
Yeah.
I can't make that claim. I didn't get married till I was in my 40s, and I was very lucky to find who I did when I did. So I got. In fact, my lovely wife had to do some dog sitting this week, so I had to spend a couple of nights here at home. And I tell you what, this place gets pretty empty without her around.
Roy says today's kids don't know what a skating rink is.
And that's sad. It is. I mean, look, I got a bunch of chipped teeth, but I earned every one of them. And I got scars. I mean, this is not a wart. That's a scar. 3 years old, 2.5 years old, went through a glass door. got a matching one over here, but you can't really find it. But I got scars all over me, like the rest of us probably do, and I earned every one of them. Behind every one of them's a story and a memory. And broken bones, and sure, I wish I hadn't, but I did, and that's the way it is. But my God, I heard a lady make a really great comment. We don't get political here, but I will say her name just because. But it's a lady named Candace Owen, so I imagine probably everybody here is familiar with anyway. She's a conservative speaker, and this was a clip that, and she was recently pregnant, or maybe she still is. I think she's had the kid, but I don't know how old the clip was. But this guy was just, you got this pregnant woman on stage trying to stand up and answer questions. And this guy gets into this snarky, whiny question about, offending this and offending that. And she goes, "Life's hard, put on a helmet." And that was probably the most succinct response to that. And I am like the rest of us. Now, don't get me wrong. I love millennials and Gen Z and the rest of them. And what are the new ones? The Zoomers. Because I occasionally, thanks to our good friend John Kitt over at Scale Car Garage, he turned me on to watching some of Peter Zion's videos. And he's a guy who talks about, the world and demographics and that kind of stuff on a global level. And he made an interesting point. A lot of countries like Japan, China, Russia, they don't have enough young people. They've got this huge population of aging people and very few young people to hold them up. America, by comparison, is in good shape. He goes, the great thing about Gen Z and millennials and Zoomers is that we have them. So, my wife and I were just, I think it was yesterday, we were driving by, we saw a bunch of kids getting off the school bus, and, like older people doing, oh God, there goes our future. And I was thinking, yep, but at least we got them. One of those kids may be president.
You can say that because you've never met my son.
By the way, guys, I just sent Steve an email today. His son lives in, is it okay to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, he lives in San Diego, and I saw a news article. San Diego is now considered the most expensive place in America to live, which the Hamptons are insulted by, and the people in San Francisco are like, yeah, we saw that one coming, because that used to be the most expensive two places. And
hey, it's the land of $7 a gallon regular gas.
And they don't even have Ollies. Well, let's see.
I got something next.
Uh-huh.
I read, I guess about a year ago, one of the explanations of why there are fewer and fewer births in China, and I guess it kind of pertains to other places too, is that many years ago, having children, was really important because, they would take care of you when you got old and help out on the farm and stuff like that.
And then
but
came
now
the
that
communists.
most people live in the city, children are just considered expensive pets.
That is almost verbatim what guys like Zion say. He said, you needed 5 or 6 kids to work the farm, but you become urbanized and they just become an expensive pet.
Yeah.
Well, what
they also had that one child.
I was going to say it's the one child policy is really what did them in. But urbanization has had an impact on the birth rate. Look, you don't have to grow your population, but you have to have replacement numbers. America more or less has replacement numbers. Of the countries that are in really, really the worst condition, Russia, Japan, Communist China, mainland China. I don't know about Taiwan. I don't know about Korea. But the European countries are in pretty bad shape too, except maybe for Italy and Spain. But they're not as bad off. I think, and believe it or not, the UK, as much as they complain about all the changing demographics of the UK, a lot of the immigrants that have come to the UK do have a lot of kids, so that's helped them in that regard. So everything, so what is it Thomas Sowell said? There are no solutions, only trade-offs. You make the trade-off.
I mean, one of the biggest problems with the Chinese was they created a manufacturing society. Well, all the workers who worked in those plants, they were kids from the farmlands.
Yep.
anymore. They're all working in the industrial sector in factories.
Well, I would remind you
they don't
that.
have time for kids.
Yeah, but I would remind you that in this country, if I can remember the statistic correctly, in 1895, 80% of people worked on farms because agriculture was very manual, and that's how we grew the food. Now, a century and a half later, century and 3 decades later, it's 3%. So we're really not much better off than any of them in that regard. But farming has become a largely mechanized operation. One of the things I love about that movie Looper, it was Looper with the kid with 3 names from Bruce Willis and the kid from Third Rock, from The Sun. Gordon Levitt.
Played Robin in the Batman movie.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah. Anyway, the thing I loved about it was Gordon Levitt something.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Thank you. The thing I love about that was just a quick little scene was the girl he hides out with lives on a farm, right? She's trying to run herself. And you see her, and she's got this thing that it's basically a drone, and she starts it, and it takes off, and the drone starts crop dusting the crops. And I'm like, that's coming. When I was a kid, one of the best paid jobs you could have if you were good enough not to kill yourself was a crop duster pilot. They made more than airline pilots by a wide margin. Thing is, they hung their butt out on the line to do it, flying under power lines and nooks and crannies. But they made a lot of money.
We got them here.
Yeah, but what I was gonna say is that our little strip had 3, 4, 5 duster pilots going all the time during the season. Now 10 years later there was one. Now there's none. Hasn't been in decades. And I talked to a friend of mine that tried to break in the crop dusting business, and he's like, first off, you have to buy an airplane. No one hires you to be a duster pilot anymore. And even back then, it wasn't uncommon. And these are turboprop airplanes that are, very expensive. Getting insurance is nigh impossible. And he goes, there aren't that many jobs. You got to live like a gypsy, go to where the work's at, and it doesn't pay like it used to. He said they paid you $300 a field in 1979, and they're still paying $300 for the same field. Of course, the money's worth a fraction. And he was sleeping in his truck, flying a Piper Pawnee for a guy because he could not afford a place to stay. He got his 3 seasons. Used to go, you got 3 seasons and then you were insurable. He got his 3 seasons and he just couldn't find work. Now he's insurable, want to be paid more. Like, man, we'll just hire some guys trying to start, or we'll just self-applicate. It's a dying industry. And
the drones are going to take over that job.
I figure that's probably true. And now, don't get me wrong. If you had the money to buy a couple of helicopters and knew what you were doing, or a couple of thrush commanders, turbine thrushes, and knew what you were doing, you could make some money. But one of my FOs is still, the last I heard, he's still a working crop duster pilot in his off time. He owns the plane. And I asked him about it, and he's in Oklahoma. He goes, you got to understand, it's a very small and very tight business. Everybody knows everybody. He goes, no one can crop dust where I crop dust because I know all the farmers personally, and they hire me because they know me, and we've worked together for years. So there's no market expansion. And that's just how it works now. 20, 30 years ago, crop dusting down in South Florida, the sugarcane was a big money deal. And there were a couple of operations that pretty much had it all locked up. And some kid came down with like a turbine thrush, or a couple of turbine thrushes, and like he was going to try and break in and lowball everybody on price. I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, but the story that reached me was they parked the airplane, started talking to the farmers, and in less than a week, both airplanes were torched on the ground.
There you go.
Very, very, maybe they were mobbed up, or maybe they were just, I don't know, but...
This was in Philadelphia?
No, this was in Miami. Soylent Green is the future. The ever popular Soylent Green. Personally, I'm a Soylent Yellow man, but
We have one guy here who probably does a 75-mile radius. Crop dust.
Yeah, and he probably knows all the farmers personally.
We got tons. Well, yeah, we got tons of farms here, but they're owned by the same 4 or 5 people.
Right. Yeah. Well, guys, it's going on 9 p.m. I promised the wife I'd finish up on time. We got a few things to do. So Any formalities, any questions before we go? And I got crop dust in Iowa. Yeah, they we used to have shade tobacco where I grew up, which was cigar rolling leaf, and they had to put the cheesecloth over all the fields on the wires. The duster pilots would come over and dust, but they couldn't tell if anybody was in the field. So it wasn't uncommon for people to get sprayed. Fortunately, it was mostly just fertilizer and growth hormone. But when they were letting out poison, which I don't know if they used the poison on the shade tobacco, but when they're putting out stuff like malathion, that stuff is dangerous. One of our duster pilots died from a heart attack, and the doctors were, because he'd been exposed to malathion early in the day, and the doctors were suspicious that exposure didn't trigger the heart attack. But that stuff, I mean, they used to use some real poisons. So don't forget Tuesday is Soylent Green Day.
Aren't you glad you never had to do that kind of flying?
Yeah, I'm not too thrilled about flying around with a bucket load with a big hopper full of poison up in front of me with the fumes heading through the cockpit. Of course, you can tell the pilot's flying by malathion a lot of times because they wear it with like a spacesuit. So do the handlers. Yeah, that's right. Cary Grant was crop dusted in North by Northwest. And don't forget, people forget that hopper up front has a big agitator going in it. So it's like flying around with a big washing machine up there. That can actually, because of the gyroscopic action of that thing, it can sort of fight you one way or the other. One reason crop duster pilots probably like to make right turns. Medflies, I know a guy that did the sterile medfly eradication mission down in Guatemala. I think it was, or Honduras. But that was he flew a King Air down low with a hole in the bottom. The guy would just drop out these little cages that had sterile medflies in them that would go out and help eradicate the medfly population somehow. Bug sandwiches. Well, alrighty, guys. Let everybody say goodnight. I'll run the loop the outro a little bit so you guys can chat with each other, and then I'll shut it all down. Steve, Ken?
Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming. See you at the next live stream.
Thanks, everyone. We always have a good time, and somebody's always got something really interesting to say, so we really enjoy your comments, even though we don't get a chance to say all the interesting ones. So y'all have a really good evening and a good weekend.
Guys, take care of yourselves, and as always, model on. Guten Tag, welcome. I am your host, Dr. Maxwell von Kuhnke, and today we will be exploring space with the children's book on exploring space. Through the miracle of Technicolor, parts of the show will be brought to you in brilliant colors instead of this classic black and white. We will see you after the show, and welcome. Exploring Space, a little golden book. Exploring Space, a true story about the rockets of today and a glimpse of the rockets that are to come, by Rose Weiler. Pictures by Tibor Kurgely. Cover by George Solanewicz. Rockets away. Only rockets can fly in space. We now have big, powerful rockets that can go there. But they fly without riders, for they are not safe. Scientists use them for tests. This big rocket is almost ready for a test flight. All it needs is fuel. Zoom, boom, zoom. The rocket's fuel explodes. Flames leap from its tail. The roaring rocket shoots high into the sky. In 2 minutes, it shoots up 50 miles. Its radio signals, beep, 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 bop. A ground crew listens for the signals. They tell about the air high in the sky, and they tell how high the rocket flies. Click, click. The rocket's camera snaps pictures of the Earth below. Now the rocket is up 100 miles. It is far, far above the clouds. Up there the air is very, very thin, and the sky is black, even in the daytime. Up higher, there is no air, just black space. The rocket cannot go that high. It starts falling. The camera comes down by parachute.
It drifts through the air and lands safely. But the rocket has no parachute. It plunges into the sea. Gravity pulls the camera and rocket down. Gravity is a force inside the Earth. It works all the time, pulling down on everything and everybody. That's why no one falls off the big round Earth. Gravity makes you feel heavy. If the Earth had no gravity, you would have no weight. No one would have weight. Everyone would fly into space. Because of gravity, going down is easy, but going up is hard. Jump up and you push against gravity. The harder you push, the higher you jump. Throw a ball into the air and you work against gravity. The harder you throw, the higher the ball goes. A rocket too works against gravity. A big engine pushes it up into the sky. The harder the engine pushes, the higher the rocket flies. The engine burns a lot of fuel, and it burns it fast. The rocket reaches a speed of thousands of miles an hour. Then the engine stops and it coasts. On and on it goes. If the rocket reaches space, it keeps on coasting. Why? Because space is almost empty. It cannot stop a rocket. A rocket or anything else stops only when something makes it stop. How will it feel to ride in a speedy rocket? If animals could talk, they could tell us, for mice and monkeys, dogs and cats have flown in rockets. The animals ride in the rocket's nose. A camera takes their pictures during the flight. While coasting, the animals cannot feel the pull of gravity. They have no weight, none at all. They float around like balloons. A parachute brings the rocket's nose down to Earth. Then the animals are rescued. As far as scientists can tell, they like the ride. To get people into space, scientists think we will need huge rockets made in several parts or stages. We already have 3-stage rockets that are as tall buildings. This one, called Vanguard, lifts a little moon into the sky. Bang! Vanguard blasts off. The Stage 1 engine shoots the rocket up. High in the sky, Stage 1 breaks away. The Stage 2 engine blasts off, pushing the rocket higher and higher. Then Stage 2 breaks away. Stage 3 fires. Up in space, the little moon pops out. Stage 3 lags behind, goes around the Earth a few times, then falls. But the moon keeps on going. A radio inside the little moon sends out signals telling what space is like. Gravity pulls on the little moon, but the moon works against this pull as it speeds ahead. Instead of falling into the Earth, it falls around the Earth. Around and around it goes, and it will keep on moving this way for many years. One of the first moons to go up had a dog inside. The dog's name was Laika. She lived in the sky for nearly a week, going around and around the Earth. Now that we know an animal can live in space, we are quite sure a man can live there too, but no man has tried to go into space because there is still no way to get back to the Earth safely. While some scientists are trying to find out how to land rockets safely, others are learning what kinds of spacesuits travelers will need. They pump air out of a room so it is like space. Men who are inside wear spacesuits to test them. The men breathe through a hose connected to an oxygen tank. How will the suits work in space? A man who wore one flew in a big balloon to the edge of space. He stayed there overnight. When he landed the next day, he said the suit was fine. Next, a man may test a spacesuit in a 3-stage rocket. Perhaps he will pilot Stage 3 after it breaks away and speeds into space. He will go too fast to feel the pull of gravity. His body will lose all its weight. He will float around the cabin if he isn't strapped in place. Will the first space traveler like the ride? When he lands, what will he tell us? Other men will follow the first space traveler into space. They will test bigger and bigger rockets. And so scientists will learn how to build great big rocket ships. These ships will fly around the world in an hour. In time, scientists will know how to build rocket ships that can carry people to the moon. After the moon, what next? Perhaps people will visit other worlds in the sky. Perhaps, when you are grown up, rockets will be as common as airplanes are now. Then you and all your friends will be space travelers. Rockets away. The Little Golden Books are prepared under the supervision of Mary Reed, Ph.D., formerly of Teachers College, Columbia University. Copyright 1958 by Simon & Schuster Incorporated and Artists and Writers Press Incorporated. All rights reserved through the world. Designed and produced by the Sandpiper Press and Artists and Writers Press Incorporated. Printed in the USA by Western Printing and Lithographing Company. Published by Simon & Schuster Incorporated. Rockefeller Center, New York 20, New York. Published simultaneously in Canada by the Muson Book Company Limited, Toronto. Well, I certainly hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you next time.
Watch World War III on pay TV. Television can be such a thrill. Sitting home in your chair, watch the boys over there, charging across your TV screen,
Getting blown to smithereens.
watch World War III on pay TV. If you want to keep the kids at home, they'll be glued to their sets, watching rockets and jets, blowing up schools and factories, putting an end to the birds and bees. It's worth every penny to tune in and see who wins the Emmy at the ruins of the Academy. Watch World War III on pay TV before your television melts away.
Think of the close-ups on the screen.
By the face you know.
Isn't this better than Bishop Sheen? Better than the Late Late Show? Watching the boys from your hometown.
Fighting whoever they are.
Watching the cities falling down.
It's greater than Jack Parr. They're out setting up the cameras now. Though they don't know just where, still they've got to prepare. Murrow's there to do his part, waiting for the war to start. See the hydrogen bomb explode. As those mushrooms appear, you'll be sipping your beer. Zooming in with a zoom-our lens, watching while the whole world ends. It's worth every penny to tune in and see who wins the Emmy at the ruins of the Academy. Watch World War III on pay TV before your television melts away. Before your television melts away.
Rockets, zing-a-boom! Tonight on the Late Show, Max's Models Theater presents King Kong Escapes, but Godzilla doesn't. What kind of madness of man has created cages that could hold the great kaiju beasts? How is it that King Kong, with his large ape's brain, manages to find a way to escape where Godzilla remains trapped? Will Kong help his fellow kaiju escape the wrath of the standard issue Mad Doctor? Or will Kong leave Godzilla behind to its fate while Kong does whatever Kong does? Watch as they release the Armada, the insanity of modern weapons sent against the simple-minded kaiju. Tonight on the Late Show, King Kong escapes, but Godzilla doesn't.